But let me just share a little bit about Leon from my perspective, and then I will get Leon to share a little bit more in terms of, what brought him to this work and really more his introduction. But and Nidhi and I now 2 years ago met Leon at a conference, and we were so moved by his work and everything that he spoke from stage that we said we have to learn this work and we have to bring this work to India. And that's really how the journey really began with Leon. And it's been so wonderful to just grow in my own knowingness, but what he shines a light on. So that's how I've received his work and feel so honored and privileged to continue to bring his work to India, learn from him, begin to claim my own space in the work that he creates. And I now take forward in bits and pieces, slowly and steadily. But that's really, Leon and my experience with Leon. Today's session is really about signals of transformation. And my sense is that the sense of signals can be looked at in 3 ways. One is the signals in terms of our own readiness. 2 is the sense of signals from what my client is ready for. And 3 is in terms of signals in terms of what the world is ready for. I see Leon's work in terms of the signals. The signal that I receive from his work is that definitely the world is like so ready and so waiting to receive this work. And whether the signals I'm ready for it, my client is ready for it, is really dependent upon where I am in my own journey. And that's really how I see all of this work. So a little bit about, Back to Source is the company that we run. And for us, it's very simple that we love to collaborate with people that are grounded in their own presence, what we call spirituality, but it's really their own presence and they embody that presence. Of course, Leon ticks the box completely. The next thing is it must be fun to engage and work and grow together. So that ticks the box completely. And the third is that it should be an ICF accredited program that supports coaches on their journey of becoming more and more grounded, not better, but more and more grounded in their work. And that, of course, it meets that requirement as well. So it was very easy to, think of how we can collaborate together. And then it's been a joyous ride. The other thing that I want to share before I hand over to Leon really is this space of coaching. To me is just a journey of personal mastery. We think that we're doing it to support another person and help another person grow, but really it just stems back to who I am and where I am on this journey and how can I work on my own inner journey. And that's the depth of the work that Leon brings through his work, which is called as Deep Coaching Intensive, is one of the programs, but through all the work that he does at the Center for Transformational Coaching. And I'll give it back to Leon. Just thank you so much for always being here, for showing up whenever we've asked you to support us, and just in sharing your brilliance and presence with the world. So thank you. I'm going to hand over to you to share a little bit more about yourself and your journey. And then you can take it wherever you want to take the session today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, your sharing of the story of how we met, and I met you and Nidhi at the conference, and APAC conference in 2019. And that story, that memory is still with me. It's kind of indelible in my mind, that experience and what happened there. It was something magical that was created as we came together here to see what would be possible within this work. So I just love that we're here today again, having a conversation with all of you who have come and who are willing to just learn and to hear a little bit of, I think, a different way of looking at the coaching experience, different than what many people are doing and what many people are teaching as a coaching experience. You mentioned, Amrita, that we're in a sense coaching self-mastery, and that is really what it is. For me, I look at it too as this journey of coaching self-actualization. What does that look like to coach self-actualization? So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, because for me, the intention of this call, we've got a small group here, so a nice intimate group, to make this like a fireside chat where we'll have a chance to converse. So even if I share information, I'm going to pause, invite in your questions, and we can converse a little bit too, because my intention is to give you an understanding of the approach through talking about what transformation is as a personal journey. And that'll give you a better sense of both the journey of transformation and how we position coaching to support that quite remarkable journey of self-actualization. Okay, so that's essentially what we'll do. But before that, a little bit more about myself, my background. I became involved in coaching in 2006, and so I was actually doing corporate training, facilitation. And one day a colleague of mine said, have you heard of this thing called coaching? I didn't know what's coaching, and he introduced me to coaching. I do live in Asia, like I live in Taiwan, and it was slower to come to the shores of Taiwan than perhaps other countries around the world. So in 2006, it was not something I'd heard of. And I was interested, looked good. I thought I can do training, facilitation, and coaching, the great trifecta of services that I could offer to companies and organizations, because I was working in organizational life at the time. And the funniest thing happened along the way. I fell in love with coaching. I was finding that the experiences that I was having in the coaching session space were so much richer and deeper than I was having as a trainer or facilitator. And so I decided to really, kind of plant a flag and say, yeah, I want to learn this. I want to know this. I want to grow in this ability and really offer it to people. But I was still doing organizational work because that's where I started. I was starting in organizational life, and I continued to coach in that space for many, many years. But around 2009, I started to work with another coach training organization and as a faculty trainer. And what happened was I started to get clients from around the world who were coming to me for a very different kind of coaching than I was doing in the more leadership, executive, corporate space. And I noticed that it required a different approach working with these people, different even than I was teaching as a faculty trainer in this academy or coaching school I was in. And that really made me reflect on what coaching can be. And I started to realize that coaching can be a whole lot more than what I was teaching and what I had been doing with people. And I thought it was rich already. Like I thought, wow, what's happening in this coaching space? And this is an organizational coaching. Well, this is so rich. This is amazing. And then I found out there's actually a whole new world of amazing that I had yet to really to dive into. So from about 2010 to about 2012, I kind of went on this journey, which allowed me in these coaching relationships to express my own spiritual, my own personal aspirations and ideas and understandings into the coaching work. And so we kind of created this kind of experimental laboratory, if you will. And by 2013, I felt that I had something in the way that I was coaching that I wanted to teach to others, because I was already doing coach training. It felt very natural to say, well, let's see if what I'm kind of feel I'm creating here with these people who are asking for a very different way of being with them than I was doing before. What if I put something together in a course and I offer it out to some people who are coaches and see if they come. And the first DCI, Deep Coaching Intensive, I ran in 2013, I had 7 people. And I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And it's only grown from there. It's just continued to expand the work. And so now the Center for Transformational Coaching offers this coursework around the world, and it's a far more robust course than when I began. Some of you have read the book, and so you'll know it's really become its own body of work. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of the context, like what was happening in my understanding of these different approaches. So I'm just going to put some slides up. Is that okay? I think we can just share the screen here, right? Okay. Can you see okay?
Perfect.
All clear? Yeah? Okay, just let me adjust something here so I can see. There we go. Okay, great. The Zoom screen gets in the way. Okay, perfect. What I'm going to show you here is something I call the coaching continuum. So think of it this way, there's different forms of coaching. One I call transactional coaching, and on the other side of the continuum, I put transformational coaching. And what I learned over the years is that much organizational coaching, much leadership coaching is transactional in nature, not transformational in nature. Now, this term transactional might be new for some of you. So I'll kind of share with you the difference between them and what that means to be a more transactional in our coaching approach. And I should clarify, I'm not talking about niches, by the way. This is not about a coaching niche. This is an approach. And it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's nothing like that at all either. It's a continuum of coaching. So the transactional approach, as it says on the slide, really is focused on helping people to do and think differently. So doing and thinking differently is the focus of transactional coaching. And for the most part, then transactional coaching is what we call results-based. So it's very focused on results. You'll often hear people talk about ROI, those kinds of things, measuring results. It is often solution-focused, and it's very issue-driven coaching. So results-based, solution-focused, issue-driven coaching. It was wonderful for things like performance-enhancing coaching. If you have a goal that you want to reach and you would like support in getting to that goal and striving to get to that goal, then this is the realm of transactional coaching. So goals are usually, for the most part, defined as an external something. For example, like I would like to improve my communication skills, or I'd like to figure out what's my next career move, or I want to lose weight, or I want to learn how to better manage my time, or something like this. So there's this external goal. And then we begin to do the work to support people to attain these goals. And we're looking to get the results. Like I want to be a better communicator. I do want to lose the weight. I do want to manage time better. I do want to be a better leader. So in organizational life, this type of coaching is abundance for the most part, right? The other side of it is too that you'll notice that transactional coaching can be very heady, if you know what I mean. It's intellect-driven coaching. And that's a big distinction from where transformational coaching and ultimately deep coaching goes, is this distinction between the head and other forms of intelligence. We're talking like the heart's intelligence and emotional intelligence. There's a large emphasis on kind of figuring things out and finding solutions and looking at options. And there's a big thinking. So coaches are thinking partners in a more transactional context. Okay. So that's basically what transactional coaching is. Then we can move down the continuum till we get to this other space I call transformational coaching. And here we're talking about not results as the focus, but ways of being. So it's being focused coaching. This is a dramatic shift. Like when we shift from focusing on results and getting somewhere and external goals that we want to achieve and make happen in our lives, to just that simple question of, who am I being? So that way of being in the moment, that's a dramatic shift in coaching focus. So whenever transactional coaching begins to move sort of beyond the issue level and begins to explore what it means to be different in the world, to be different, now we are landing more in the transformational realm. And it is, as the slide says, this place of like light and shadow, because we're starting to really get in and look at our operating system, like really look at why we experience life the way we do, why we get the outcomes we do, why I value what I do, why I believe what I do, why I strive for what I strive for. So there's this deeper level of self-understanding that really comes in when you drop below the thinking mind and start to explore realms of being and who am I being and what does it mean for me to show up in this world in these different ways of being as the core focus of the coaching. So the great transformational question then is this, I call this the great transformational question, is who do I choose to be? So it's not how do I solve this? It's not how do I fix this? It's not what are my options? It's not how do I get better at doing these things? It's not even the great coaching promise of how do I make my dreams come true? Like it's not even that question, right? We often hear that. How do I make my goals come into fruition? How do I manifest? How do I make my dreams? We're not even going there. We're going into the question of who do I choose to be? And it could be like in this situation, in any situation I find myself, like who do I choose to be now in this situation? Or it could be who do I choose to be in life, the broader context and playing field in which we are all a part. So the beauty of transformational coaching and what makes it transformational is that the work is not simply to choose a way of being. That's just the beginning. The work is to become the living embodiment of that choice in being. So for example, let's say somebody says, well, I really want to be much more confident in my life. I feel that I am always kind of shy in the corner a little bit. I feel that what I have to say isn't really valued. I want to be more confident in the world. I want to be confident in who I am. Okay, so there's the choice and the desire to be that within this confident self. But to become the living embodiment of confidence, like where every cell in your being is confident, where it is you are the embodiment of that, that's the journey of transformation, because it requires us to really go in and to look at all that shadowy stuff that may be getting in the way of what keeps us from simply being confidence, right? And that's challenging work. That is truly challenging work, because some of the stuff that we believe about who we are goes so deep into us. There can be so many factors that really prevent us from embodying new ways of being in this world. Things like our old thought patterns, old attitudes, values that we've been taught, behaviors, emotions. All of these things after a lifetime can have a real grip on people. So it's often very challenging, sometimes very painful, to really start to look at all of this and to begin to do the work to free ourselves so that we may truly stand in that which we choose to be and embody. So when we choose these ways of being and embodiment, we are actually choosing how we wish to experience life at a core fundamental level, which is so different from saying, I want to be a great communicator, I want to be a better leader, I want this or I want that. We're saying, how do I want to experience life every day, like every day? And that's a phenomenal place for people to land. So this is there's a different kind of coaching for that. And that's what we're talking about here today. I personally find it to be a kind of magical place. And here's why, because we're looking at something called our self-concept. I mentioned earlier the inner operating system. You may have heard this term. It is a psychological term. And it is essentially, as it says, our system of learned and conditioned beliefs, images, and values about who we are and about our value and our place and our purpose in this world. So it's this learned thing that we gain from birth. We grow this we grow it like an onion. We grow these layers upon layers upon layers of conditioned ideas. We're taught them by our family, by society, by our teachers. It all comes at us. This is who you should be. This is what you should value. This is what's important. This is what matters. And we don't notice it coming at us, but it does. And so we create this onion, if you will, that over time begins to mask more essential, true self-knowing. So this is our self-concept, and we all have one. So the work then begins to start to examine this self-concept. to really examine it. Because if we're going to say, like, I'm choosing to be confident, like I'm going to stand in the strength of who I am, that's getting closer to just standing in the core strength of self. And it can require this kind of peeling away of all the things that we have bought into for a lifetime, the falsities, the half-baked truths, all our ego stuff that we have kind of accumulated for a lifetime. It includes the wounds, the disappointments, the hurts, the sorrows, the traumas. All of that just builds up this kind of shell of self that stands in the way of us being who we are at core levels. And then we have to start to heal them. And I'll use the word healing because that is effectively what needs to happen. As we heal, we then peel away these onion layers and we start to grow into who we are, more of our true self, our higher nature. And we start to then quite magically, this is the piece I love, is that naturally and organically, as we do this work, we start to connect with our purpose, our calling, our highest calling in this world. It's a natural expression that wants to come forth as we get closer to living in our most authentic nature. But most people, in truth, they think they know who they are, but they don't. So you might remember on the continuum, I had this little part where the transactional and transformational overlap a little bit. And I like to call that overlapping area in the middle developmental coaching. That's not some term you'll find necessarily anywhere else in the sense that I'm defining it for myself here. But I call it developmental because it's that place where a lot of people will get to when they start to want to know more about themselves. So if you work with things like StrengthsFinder or Myers-Briggs or any of the other myriad of assessments that are out there, and I'm sure you know what I'm speaking about, we can learn about ourselves. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. I take the Enneagram. Oh, I'm this personality, not that personality. We start to see ourselves in these things and we start to learn about ourselves. And this is a wonderful journey for people to be on. This is where people start to really have a thirst to know more about their strengths, their talents, their abilities, their gifts, and how to leverage them in the world. Now, often in developmental coaching, goals are still external. Often, they still want to achieve success in a career, for example. So to achieve success, I need to what? I need to change some things about myself. Okay, so I'll go in and I'll make these changes in service of that external goal that will help me get where I would like to go. So developmental coaching is a wonderful space to be in with people. But the reality is that even when we learn about ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting to a core truth about who we truly are, kind of what I've got there at the center of the onion, that essence self. Because people can then identify, for example, with an indicator. Well, you know, I'm this type. And that explains why I am this way and why I do what I do. So I can leverage this understanding to grow and kind of thing. But as long as there's an identity with that external indicator, we're still in an identity phase. We're not yet really moving beyond identity with something that says we're this or that. So developmental coaching has the potential to move into that transformational realm when people are really ready to look at that operating system, to really go into this and say, okay, who am I at the core? What is all of this that I've carried for a lifetime that is possibly not of me, that I never chose for myself, that I've just taken on because of my family, because of my culture, because of expectations, possibly even because of my own inherent personality. So there's all of this going on. And so here's the really awesome thing that I found is that, and then there comes a point in people's lives when they begin to awaken. I'll use the word awaken. Not everyone awakens, but many today are kind of awakening from this kind of dream state, if you will. And they're beginning to ask themselves really essential questions. The biggest question for me, who am I? Like, who am I truly at the core of my being? Who am I? So they're asking themselves questions like this. What is my purpose? I feel there's something more to life. I've been spending all my time in this company doing this work, which, yes, it pays well and pays the bills, and it's good work and they're good people, but, and there's the but, it's not who I am. This is not what I am here to do in this world. But just because people are asking those questions doesn't mean that there is ready answers. But these questions actually are signals. It's one of the signals I'm going to show you in just a moment of people who are moving on what I call a journey of transformation that begins with a kind of awakening. And they want to know more of who they are at the core level. Now, I know that word transformation, it's used a lot these days. Like, I get that, right? I get that we talk about transformational leadership and transforming organizations, and coaches love the term, I'm a transformational coach. And from what I've seen, many coaches call themselves that who do transactional coaching. So I recognize the word's overused. So I want to be clear that when I talk about transformation, I'm not talking about change. It's often confused with change. Like, I change all the time, but I don't transform all the time. In fact, if you look back over your whole life, like, how many times can you truly say you have transformed? My guess is it's going to be less than the fingers on one hand. Like, transformative change is radical. It's revolutionary. It's a revolutionary change in your understanding of self and the structure of your sense of self. Because this self concept, it's a constructed, learned idea about you. So the revolution of that would be to come to know yourself as what you truly are. So when I talk about transformation in human terms, I'm talking revolutionary change, not just daily change, the kind of change that we all experience because we grow and we live and we learn, not that kind of change. It's the kind of change that changes everything. And there are people on this journey today, folks. You are probably aware of them, if not one yourself. This is what I started to discover when I started to say that people were coming to me asking for a different kind of coaching. They were coming to me and saying, Leon, I'm experiencing a transformation and I don't think I quite get it. I don't quite understand what it all means for me. So I had to learn to listen for these signals, what I call signals of transformation, so I could recognize them. And then when I recognized them, I could then position myself to coach them effectively. I had an experience many years ago when I was going through my own personal transformation, and it was a tough time. Transformation is a tough time. It's never easeful. It's not intended to be easeful, but I was going through it and I thought I'd find a coach. And I was speaking to him about all that was happening in my life. And he came into the session completely transactionally. Like, what are your options? What are your choices? What kind of solutions? What kind of action are you going to take? All these questions. And I just, it wasn't it. It wasn't it. He just missed what I needed. He wasn't able to hear in me the signals. Had he heard them, he may have been able to position himself differently to work with me. Because transformation, as uncomfortable as it is not something that you fix. It's not a problem to be solved. And that's the transactional mindset, that if I come in saying I've got a challenge and a problem, we've got to solve this thing. I feel uncomfortable. I feel in pain. I feel emotionally overwhelmed. Well, we got to fix that. Got to get you back to feeling good. Not in transformational work. So the first signal, I'll just go into these now, of transformation is simply that people will signal that there is this uncertainty and confusion and doubt with what's happening within themselves and their lives. I mentioned the big questions, right? I said, people ask really big questions like, what am I here for? What's my purpose in life? What is my highest calling? Is this who I really am? Why have I said yes to this which others value? I don't remember choosing this. Why have I bought into this? Why do I do this? So all this stuff starts to come up, and these inner plates are shifting. There's cracks in that onion. It's amazing what happens. And sometimes it happens for people, like they wake up one morning And then they literally look around, going, what am I doing with my life? It can be that sudden. For others, it can be born of a trauma. Trauma is a great awakener. And that could be the loss of someone or something that you value greatly. It can be the onset of a disease that you didn't expect. Some kind of trauma. People come out of that and they reevaluate what they've been valuing. And for other people, it's just kind of slow, natural progression from one state of living and awareness into kind of that next phase of living. So it happens in different ways, but the signal is the same. And there is a lot of confusion for people and doubt and uncertainty because everything's starting to be questioned. And there's concerns like, well, what happens if I actually follow this inner impulse? What will people think of me? What if I give up this wonderful job that I've been earning all this income at, the dream job from my parents, not me, but what if I give that up? What will they think? What will my family think? What will my friends think? There's a lot of uncertainty. And because we don't have necessarily role models of people who are showing us the way, saying this is a normal part of the experience, people kind of hold on tight, trying to like, maybe I just need to hold tighter to the world that I know, and don't make any rash decisions. Don't go down that path because I don't know where it leads. It could get worse. So all of this is happening inside as these plates begin to shift. So that relates to the second signal as well, which is people begin to feel the presence of what I call the pain body. The pain body. You may have heard this term. The pain body, sometimes in psychological work, it's called the shadow side. And there's so many ways to describe this, but the shadow side is kind of, how do I say this? More the traits of our human nature that are at times heavy to carry, let's put it that way. Hatred, greed, despair, jealousy, these kinds of human experiences that we have. Well, some of us carry them in a big way, and they've been with us for a long time. They create a kind of inner pain body that lives in all the cells of our body. And other for all of us too, we've all had disappointments, great ones at times, deep sorrows, losses. Have we actually done the healing work? Have we done grief work? Or have we, like so many of us are taught, just stuff them away so that we can get on with life? Depending what culture you come from, like I know in like the Western culture, in English cultures, oh man, the English, just pull up your bootstraps, chin up, don't show the world that you're hurting, and show them everything's fine. How are you doing? I'm fine. Get on with life and just stuff all that away. But we carry that hurt, that pain with us. It's like this huge bag that we're like touting around with us. That's all part of the pain body. And what happens in transformation as people begin to awaken, it's almost like this pain refuses to be repressed anymore. The unattended sorrow, the limiting beliefs, the false ideas of who I am, it just starts to bubble up into the surface for attention, for attending to. Because you cannot transform at a core level of being unless you are really willing to look at all of that stuff. If you are unwilling to look at it, you will only go so far in your life. You will only go so far in terms of your experiences of what's possible, in terms of knowing the potentials of your highest self and nature. Because some people just can't look at it. They just won't. It's too painful. It's too scary. It's too deep. They just won't. And they will find ways to just avoid it. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that everybody's ready for this work. In fact, the vast majority of the people on our planet are not yet ready to do this work, but there are people who are. And it's part of transformational work that's going to come up. And they'll say to you something like, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't even really want to dwell on the past. This is not about me dwelling on the past. It's that these are barriers within me, these old patterns that are stopping me from moving forward. They're stopping me from being my most authentic self. And some of it hurts to look at it, but I'd like some support with this. Okay. And it doesn't mean we're going into therapeutic work. It doesn't. From a coaching perspective, it's not about that in any way. But it is about our capacity to support people to do the work for themselves and how that happens within a coaching conversation. And it absolutely can. And that's the power of this work, is that we give people permission to look at things that they are so ready to look at, but which many others around them in their life may have no capacity to support them with. Like, I can't talk to my family about this. This is just way too, I can't talk to them about this. They'll think I'm, but can they with us? Yes, that's the power of transformational work. So that's the second signal, right? There's this presence of the pain body, and that then comes in with this piece. I'm ready to heal it. I am ready to let go of this because this is not who I am. This is no longer. It's been with me for longer than I can remember. I have believed for a very long time that this is part of who I am and that I must experience this as part of my life, but I am now choosing to let this go. So there's this request, in a sense, sometimes explicit, like they'll say it, other times implicit, for healing. Now, that doesn't mean that we as coaches are healers. That's not it at all. And this is a confusion people have. They go, oh, I need to be a healer. I need to help these people heal. Not at all. But the transformational coaching space has the potential to become a healing space. So what we're doing is creating conditions in which people feel safe enough to first look at all of this stuff and then begin to release what they're ready to release, to let it go. And what happens is then they start to shift their way of being. That's why I call this work in my book a shift in being, because what happens is as all those onion layers slowly begin to dissolve, and that's kind of what it is, it's a dissolution, people naturally shift into new paradigms of being and new paradigms of personal experience. It's an extraordinary thing. The authentic nature of who they are is revealed, but it requires this work. It requires this work. So that's the third signal, is that people will begin to say, I'm ready. And they'll be looking at transformational coaches and saying, are you the one I can do this with? And if you say, well, no, you can't. You can't do this with me. I'm uncomfortable with your pain, or I don't know what to do with that. Then people will go somewhere else. Or again, they'll just shut it down and talk about something with you that they know you're comfortable with as a coach. Oh, my coach can handle this from me, but he can't handle that. He can talk about my goals and aspirations, but my coach has no capacity to witness my pain. Or if my coach does witness my pain, my coach asks me questions how I can solve this, because my coach thinks that my pain is a problem to be solved. My coach has no idea that this is a signal of transformation, that this is the most functional reality of transformational work there is. My coach has no idea about that. So my coach just kind of shuts it down. And we talk about things my coach is comfortable with. This will happen to you, folks. It happens often unconsciously, but people will notice in you what you're ready for and what you're not as a coach. And if they sense that you're not ready for this, they won't bring it to you, or they'll go find someone who can. So this is why we're talking about this, because ultimately we want to be able to be coaches who can support true human transformation. And this is what it looks like. It's often sticky, a little messy and gooey when we get into it. And if that's not for you, then wonderful. Then there's going to be those who need you to do what you do. But there are so many people who are coming through this awakening journey who are ready to shed this, and they want people to support them and not necessary therapy. So the fourth signal, the final one. Okay, so once we begin to do this work, people just say, I want to be authentic. I want to live my highest purpose. So what happens too is not only is there this letting go, if you will, this falling away of what is no longer, there is what I call what's coming, the letting come, the emergent selfhood that's beginning to show up as this structure, this self-concept begins to crumble. At least the more ego-based self-concept begins to crumble. It begins to be replaced by a soul-based self-concept, one that reflects my highest self. And people are touching that. They're seeing it. They're starting to see the beauty in themselves. They want to live authentically. They want to serve. They want to live their highest purpose. And nothing's going to stop them anymore. They are done. So when you hear this too, it doesn't mean that people are there immediately. Yeah, there's a journey into living your purpose that happens. It's not just because I've named it, I can go do it. No, it's a journey into it. It's a journey to live authentically. People often confuse authenticity with like, I'm just being me. But they don't realize that the them that they're being is an ego-based self-concept them. They don't even realize that they're being that. So they think they're authentic. And in a sense, yes, they are. But they're not the authentic that this experience is pointing to, that transformation is pointing to, which is the authentic self at the core of who I am. That is coming forth. And that's what people are connecting with. And that's what they want to bring into the fullness of their being, right? So I hope you can see, just like as I'm sharing these signals, that a transactional approach, even a developmental coach approach, will not work for this, because it's not a place of goal achievement. It's not a place of solution finding. And you are not ever going to figure your way through it. And that's the fun part, is because everyone's going to think that they can figure this out. Even people in the journey, like, if I could just figure this out, all will be well. And I hear my clients say this, and I always have to laugh. I go, yeah, great. Try to figure it out. We're not. We're going to evolve there. We're evolving to this place. We're not figuring out our way to this place. And people try. People try, and coaches try too. Oh, we try so hard. We try so hard because we're all conditioned and trained as coaches to help people put on their thinking caps and fix this and solve this and find solutions and options and choices and all of that. But it's not needed. It's not needed. So here's what's needed. This is what it takes to be a great transformational coach. Two things. And then I'm going to stop so you can ask questions. The first thing is that your being is your doing. So if you're going to support other people to shift into new ways of being and to embody them, then you yourself have to recognize that your being becomes your doing. So the focus is more on who am I being as the coach, your presence, and then holding a space. How do we hold space for transformation? And that trumps the intellectually driven, like, doing, or even trumps things like, my goal as a coach, my role, is to ask powerful questions. I'm very glad to see that ICF removed that one from their latest iteration of core competencies, because I keep teaching my students, like, we don't ask powerful questions. I don't even know if I ask powerful questions. I have no clue. But we do ask questions. Sure. Are they powerful? Sometimes. But the focus is on your way of being. So your being becomes your doing, your doing flows from your being, and the quality of your presence is paramount. Can you hold a space in which people can go into light and shadow? Because it's an intensely personal experience. It's like a really an intimate experience with another human being. People put their whole self into these relationships. They put everything that is in them, every single thing that is of them, they share it with you. Can you receive that and hold that, even when it's so vast or so painful that you don't even know what to do? Can you do that? So it comes back to being. Who do you need to be in order to support transformation? Who do you need to be? You can think on that for a minute. When you think of what are the qualities that come to mind, you think on that one. And that quality of being is what the Deep Coaching Intensive is here to teach, along with tools and practices that create transformational spaces. So the second one, and this flows from the first one, of course, is that your transformation enables transformation. Okay, so this is the big one. This is the big one, because everyone at first, when they hear about deep transformational coaching thinks, I'm going to get some tools and techniques, some tools and techniques that are going to make me a transformational coach. Now you can hear me laughing because that's just not the journey of the transformational coach. The journey of the transformational coach is that you commit to your own transformation and you come out the other side. Because if you try to coach someone through a journey of transformation that you have never gone on, and you think, well, I read it in a book. I read Leon's book. I can do this. I've never gone there myself. I've never touched the depth of my being. I've never really done deep healing work on those aspects of myself that really are in need of it. I don't really know at a core who I am beyond what I've taken some, strength finders to show me, kind of thing. If you have never, dived to the depth of your being, then you really can't support someone to dive to the depth of theirs. So this is why your transformation enables transformation. And a big part of the deep coaching work in our course is to enable your transformation, because my transformation, and this is the truth, my transformation enables transformation. When I elevate myself into higher levels of consciousness, energy, selfhood, I become that way shower and enabler that other people can then do the same. And that's what's exciting for me. I become the enabler of someone else's awakening and transformation. We are the great enablers, but it comes from having walked the path and the journey ourselves. And now a lot of people say, Leon, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this? That's a big question. Am I ready for this? That is something you have to spend in your quiet time, kind of that inner place of contemplation. But the reality is that more people are more ready than they think. If you have gone on this journey, if you said yes to your own journey of transformation, even if you haven't completed it, I'm totally transformed kind of thing. I don't know what that would look like, but let's say this idea of being completely transformed is that if you're on the journey, there will be people that need you who are just a little behind you. Always. Do the people that need you look to you and see in you, there is one who holds something within themselves that I would like to understand more in myself. And if you can trust that, then you'll know that you're always ready, right? You're always ready. We are more powerful than we know, but it takes commitment to this journey, so that we can help other people elevate themselves into higher levels of consciousness. So I'll pause there at this point, Amrita. If you want to come in, that'd be perfect.
I'm awestruck even after having been through the program, supported you in co-facilitating it, and each time I hear you, I'm still awestruck. So thank you so much, first, Leon, for bringing this in your in just seemingly effortless way that you bring it to light. But thank you so much, first. And I just want to open it up to any kind of questions, any thoughts, anything that's triggered for you. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to unmute and share whatever it is that you may be experiencing or feeling, or stay with that experience or feeling before you get into the head and start thinking about it. And you can share anything that you want and ask anything that would support you in better understanding this work.
Please, because I shared a lot. So if you want me to go back to something or jump around a little bit, or it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I saw Rohini's hand up right up front. So go for it, Rohini.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree, Amrita. It was so interesting. And I was nodding along as Leon was speaking. Leon, I have a question. Your initial slide where you talked about the coaching continuum going from transaction-based to transformation. And I know that's how executive coaching generally works. And I just wondered whether there was a possibility to introduce some of this transformational stuff early on in the transactional journey, and whether that, without kind of making it into a wholly separate and a much more sort of spiritual and a deeper thing, whether there were elements of that could be brought in so that transactional coaching piece becomes even more valuable for the client?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And there's a few layers to the answer. Amrita's chuckling because she knows maybe what I'm going to possibly say. Okay, so there's a couple of approaches. One approach is this idea that I bring this work to the more transformational realm. And by doing that, I can perhaps, in a sense, kind of nudge people along into that more transformational space because I'm introducing this work. Whether they're ready or not has no relevance to me. I love transformational work. I see the benefit of transformational work. So I'm going to bring this in and kind of pull people in to that space. Now, you probably might hear in my voice, there's inherently going to be a bit of a challenge with that. Because what's happening in that moment is I'm bringing my agenda as a coach to the table. I'm saying, I love this work. And because I love it, and it's been so miraculous in my life, it's going to be miraculous in yours. And therefore, I'm going to introduce it to you. So the other approach is to listen for the readiness. And that's why we talk about the signals. What is there a readiness for in this person? And this is what gets surprising. In my book, I share a story of a client. I called him Sam in the book, and it was a perfect example. You know, he would come into our sessions. He was a corporate gentleman, consultant, business type. And he'd come in and he'd always have that goal. Like, I want some techniques at the end of this session to be more assertive with my boss. The truth was, if I listened carefully to him, when he would really talk about what is going on for him, it wasn't about that. There was something much deeper happening. Because I'm versed in these signals and listening for people who are in what I'm calling the transformational space, even if they don't know it themselves, is that I can then begin to possibly seed in some of this work because I'm hearing that readiness is there, even if they are not necessarily ready. And we can begin to open up some conversations around these deeper experiences. And let's just put the strategy aside for a minute. Let's talk about these deeper rumblings that are happening within you that you're probably not talking about with anybody else in the world. And the moment I gave him permission for that, it just open up. Wonderful to witness. But I've had many clients too who are not in that space, who are like, look, I just want to get something done, Leon. I want you to help me organize my stuff. And what is all this deeper stuff you're talking to? And the resistance comes up. And I start to notice then I'm not connected to my client, really, am I? I'm more listening to what I want rather than where they're at and really meeting their needs. Yeah. So the solution that I found, if you will, is what I call the resonant potential. It's a new word. I made it up. I stuck two words together that sounded good. The resonant potential. And the resonant potential means that in any coaching relationship, actually in any situation I find myself in relationship, that I can create a space which implicitly, I'm not speaking to it, but implicitly invites people in to a deeper experience. In other words, the beingness that I carry in, the way that I approach coaching, which is more spacious and more allowing and less in the head and more of the heart, all of that creates a certain environment, you might say, in which they are now sitting with me. I call that the resonant because it's vibrating. It's got this vibrancy and it's got potential. It's like I'm holding this door open that says, I'm here, I'm ready to go deep with you whenever you're ready. I'm listening for it. And you're sensing that it's possible with me because this is what I'm creating for you. Now, explicitly, I may be saying nothing in this way. I might just be engaging with them as I normally do in a coaching context, but there is this potential. And that is how I find these worlds are best brought together, where it's not about an agenda I have, but about an invitation I'm giving. And I do it explicitly, unless I'm hearing the signals, then it becomes more implicit, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
That answer it? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to add just one more perspective, how I've seen this work and experienced it to Rohini's question. And that is really what I have learned through this program is how me, the coach, can support the journey for my client by being able to work through that whole continuum. If they're the developmental space, I meet them there. If they're the transactional space, I meet them there. If they're at the transformational space, I meet them there. So it's really about me expanding my capacity to engage with the entire realm of the continuum without any sense of judgment, but a sense of invitation to wherever you are at, client, I'm here to hold that space for you. And some sessions, they may be at the transactional realm, and that's fine. And some sessions later, they may be at the transformational realm, and that's also fine. So it's really about me expanding my capacity more than taking my client into that end of the continuum.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it, because without the understanding of how it works at the deeper end, we tend to just work with what we know. So if we don't know how to support true transformation, then we bring a more transactional approach to a transformational conversation. That can be problematic. My story, I shared it. You're right. So we expand that capacity so we can meet people anywhere, fully confident of our capacities to support their growth.
Okay. Let's take Ritesh, then Shilpa, and then come to Priyanka in the order of raised hands.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Amrita. So to start with, thank you, Leon. I think what all you spoke about, one is, yes, there was a lot of things about coaching, which was transformational coaching. I think the highlight for me was that when you said that it all starts with one's own transformation. And that is what I pick up from the biggest thing for me from this talk. What I want to share here is, and then I come to the question of it, is that a lot of my coaching sessions till now, some of them, I would say almost about 20 odd, because I keep a track of these, where I have till now felt that maybe they have been a little incomplete somewhere, was because I was focusing eventually on the action steps, the doing of it. And by listening to you today, I get this realization that those sessions were all about being. And somewhere, maybe not, because I've still not seen what all you do completely, but those sessions were about transformation and not transactions, which makes me feel good that yes, it was not that justice was not done to those sessions completely. It was not where I was thinking they were left for me. Third important thing, it was a question, but I think when Amrita spoke now, she almost answered that, is that this does not only say that we have to take every client to only the transformational level. If somebody is not ready for it, we meet them there. So actually my question was that through this, do we take it as that everybody has to be taken to that level? And my understanding is that no, it is not essential, but meet them where they are. So as I said, partially the question was answered, but anything further you would want to add to that? And thanks again. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is what I call the golden rule of coaching, is that we meet people where they're at. And yet we hold the door open for this potential deeper dive. And I do believe that people can sense somehow our capacities to go deeper with them or not. And in a sense, our clients meet us where we're at. And that's a funny thought, isn't it? Right? We think, oh, I'm meeting you where you're at. No, they're actually also meeting us where we're at. And if we are unable to really go to those deeper realms, they will pick up on that at some level and they'll step back. And I always think it's not, it's in a way that feels to me like a bit of a shame, because they're ready. And it's only that the coach is not necessarily capable. So for me, the magic happens. I always say the magic happens when the readiness of the client meets the capacity of the coach. And when those two intersect in the deeper realm, it is truly magic. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh, and Shilpa, over to you.
Yeah, I think thank you, Leon, for the great talk and what you've shared with us today. And I think thanks, Amrita, for adding that perspective, because I think I should have lowered my hand. I didn't realize, I was so engrossed in the conversation that I didn't. Yeah, my thought was in terms of the readiness and the awareness of the readiness. Awareness of the client and awareness and capacity of the coach. So it just got me thinking that as the role of a coach, which we say is, development, at a human level, right? So in that light, in that role, how would you, what would the role be? Where would you draw the line of making somebody more aware of their readiness at whatever level of readiness they are? I mean, I don't know, Amrita, if I'm making sense of getting what I'm saying, but
could you rephrase?
Did you get that, Amrita?
Did you get it, Amrita? Yeah, because I missed the.
So because I know some of these people from that space and from the fundamental coaching skills that they have already received, the understanding that I'm already, working in that space, and I was in that space exactly. So that's the reason maybe I will take the opportunity, if you're okay with it, Shilpa, to like review it. Yeah.
Yes.
Is the sense that I'm already doing this doing and being coaching. I'm already doing this holistic space that I think I'm doing, which I have now learned is really that developmental space. And I see that role that I play very well as a developmental coach. Now, from the developmental space, how do I expand it to this other space? Is it me who has to expand? Or is it the client who says, hey, I'm here, will you coach me here? And that's really what Leon was referring to in terms of the readiness of the client, which you can spot through these signals, meets the capability or the capacity of the coach to engage with that space. And like I said, when we began the session, some of you weren't here, is that these signals I see is for us to see where are we on this space, because ultimately it's our work to do as well. So where am I on this space and how do I expand that capacity? And where is my client on this space? And which signal is he showing up, or which signal am I sensing into for me to, meet him in that space? So I thought I will rephrase your question, but I just rephrased some other thinking that I thought, I was receiving from you. So if that's anything that you would like to share around it, or now ask your question, if this is what you wanted to say, I'll hand it back to you, Shilpa.
No, I think very beautifully put, Amrita. So with you on that, receive it fully. The thought that comes to my mind is the awareness of the readiness on either side. Signals is one, of course. Signals is what Leon has talked about. Is there anything else? How do you make the client more aware? And should you at all? What's the role of the coach over there? Yeah. The person could be ready, but may not be aware of their own readiness.
Exactly. So this is actually an interesting question that comes up in the course too, because the taught idea of the coach is that the coach doesn't input too much. Right? They receive, they question, they reframe, they mirror, but there's not a lot of output from the coach, input ideas into the client. We look at that as a different form of working with people, like mentoring or something like that. So it's not that I believe that there are these cut and dry lines in life. I don't really subscribe to too many. Everything's a gray zone. There comes a time when you will work with people when they will need to have greater insight into why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. There is something important for people who are going through transformational processes around understanding. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that they always get the why answered. There are going to be many, why do I experience this? Why is this happening? That we can only hold up our hands and say, we don't know why today. So it's not so much that all questions are answered, but there's sometimes are questions around the process that of transformation itself, that the coach who has not only been versed in the journey, which is a big part of the course, we teach the process, but we're also having people go into it themselves. So they're coming from experiential knowledge, not book knowledge. So when you share with a person something like an understanding of why, let's say, a developmental aspect of their journey that they may not understand. One of the things that, as an example, people who are on transformational journeys often start to feel disconnected from people that they've spent a lifetime with, friends, family, coworkers. They're starting to ask themselves really big questions about life. They're exploring the biggest questions about meaning and existence. And they look around and people are interested in TikTok and Instagram and what's for dinner. And then they start to feel like nobody around me is experiencing this. And they start to feel separate. And this can be very troubling because suddenly friendships that they've had for a lifetime are no longer seeming right. And they will ask in the session, why is this going on? So if the coach can do something that I call normalizing, this is such a valuable way for a coach to input. Okay, when you experience this, this is a normal part of the journey. This is, in a sense, what's going on and why it's happening. Can you see that? And people are like, oh yeah, when something is normalized for them, something that feels dysfunctional is now seen as functional, there's a breath of relief. So there is a role for the coach to play in normalizing experiences. And it's not just saying, yeah, it's all okay, just trust it, it's all good. It's not that. It's coming from a place of, there is real function to this thing you're experiencing, and this is what it is, and this is why you're experiencing it. And then people can take a breath, because the moment they take that breath, they lean into it more. They trust this process more. They might not get it, but now I can trust a little bit more. And that then tends to lower the guards of resistance, and they can reopen themselves to the path, even if it's challenging. So that's the role. Okay, it becomes one of normalizing a journey for better understanding. It's part of what's needed. You know, people say, well, that's not the role of the coach. Well, you know, it's the role of the transformational coach. Because people don't understand. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think like you said, you know, it's a lot about gray. You know, it's not so clear cut in the various work that we do for development. You know, it may not be so tight.
Yes.
So what I heard you say, Leon, was that there'd be parts in which the coach would actually, you know, work with the client to sort of explain and give answers if required. Did I hear that correctly?
At times, right? And usually, like I said, it has to do with understanding the nature of the journey, which is why we spend so much time learning it, because this is not something we're taught in school. We're not taught the dynamics of transformation. So when people get hit by the dynamics, it confuses them, because often it's challenging and they don't understand it, and that can put up resistance. So if we can help them just lower resistance through a bit of understanding, this is different than advice giving. We're not giving advice. We're not giving solutions. We're not telling them what they should do. We're saying this is a dynamic of an experience, of a journey that you're on. Can you grasp that enough to trust it? And if you can trust it, you can just relax into this a bit more. We're going to go through this together. That kind of thing. So not advice giving. You know, I'm not saying this is the choice you need to make, anything like that, or this is what you should believe. No, that's not on.
No, that's
right.
That's very useful. If we have time for it, Leon, if you could give an example to that, it'll be great. You know, to what you just explained through an example of a coaching journey.
Well, I'd mentioned the situation of people feeling distant from. Yeah. That's a dynamic of transformation, as an example. Okay. Another dynamic of transformation is when people feel that they're in what I call the in-between. There's that state they're going to reach where they've let go of a lot, but yet they don't feel like they fully let come this new self. So I call that living between the no longer and the not yet.
Okay.
Okay. So and people come, how do I live in this space? It's like, it's not me that anymore, but I don't know what is me. So what is me? And then there's this, so once again, it feels so dysfunctional. And it's the dysfunction of it that leads people to want to problem solve it. Instead of seeing it as the perfect functionality of transformation, they experience it as, well, there's got to be something wrong because this is terribly uncomfortable. So coach, help me fix it. And the coach, if they're not versed in normalizing, will say, yes, we will solve this problem. And yet it's not a problem to be solved. So again, the coach normalizing what it is to be in that dynamic allows people to drop resistance to it, to lean in a bit more and trust it. Okay.
Normalize. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to Priyanka, to your question.
Thank you. Hi, Leon. Breath of relief, that's what I got right now, because after listening to everybody. So my question was this, I had two things. One is, at one point you mentioned about ego and authenticity and being. So I would love to have more clarification on how to know when my ego is speaking and how to know that my authentic self is the one that is at play. That's number one. And number two is, as we transform, and I'm at that zone actually, so that's why I said breath of relief, because now I'm at a point where I no longer want to coach my old clients, very frankly speaking. I feel so guilty, and there's a part in me which wants to cling on to them because they want to, but a huge part of me wants to leave them and move to newer paths, explore new prospects and all of that. So that's why I said, although intellectually I know that, yes, this is something which happens, but how do I deal with it? How do I handle this phase? If you can give me some inputs, that will be great. Yeah.
Priyanka, you're not going to like my answer.
I'm open for that.
So you asked me two beautiful questions that are part of the dynamic of transformational work.
Okay.
And I've just finished mentioning earlier that the role of the coach is not to give answers.
So you're not going to give me answers.
Clients, all of the big questions arise. How do I live in this? What does this mean? My clients, why do I suddenly not want to work with these people? What does this mean? Well, how do I shift? These are wonderfully big questions. And for me to just say, well, do this or that would be to do a massive disservice to you. The service would be to help you connect with that highest part of yourself, to shift yourself into that place of knowing and understanding where all that wisdom becomes available. And then you look at me and go, oh, you mean it's all in me? All of these answers to what I need to be doing and why this is happening. Yes. So the work is not to answer your questions on either of those. The work would be to sit with you, to help you connect with that part of yourself which knows as best you can at this point what is good, right, and true for you, so that you move in alignment with that higher knowing, in trust, with courage. Right?
Thank you. I like that. Yeah.
And I love it though, because, we were just asked for some examples of how, the kinds of things people are looking at. So I can normalize this for you and to say, yeah, that feeling of no longer wanting to work with a certain group is perfectly normal. There may be a part of yourself that's saying that I'm called to work with a different group in a different way, in a more expansive way. And I can normalize and say, yes, good. This is a signal that you are looking at something in yourself that maybe you've never seen before, that might be a new vista of possibility. Let's go there.
It's scary.
I can do that, right? Yes, because it is scary. Yes, good. Now you're confirming what everybody knows. It is scary. I mentioned that, right? That's the role of our work. It's not to answer that. It's not to go, oh my God, my client's scared. I got to help her find a solution. No. How do we shift you into a state of being where so much wisdom and knowing and brilliance just becomes available to you that is already in you? And you can see at least the next step. You might not see 5 years down the line, but you'll see the next step or the next 2 steps. And you'll take those steps with courage and faith and trust.
Thank you so much.
That's good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm going to add one more normalizing to what you shared, Priyanka, and that is that as I've experienced this work is that there is some things that you let go of, and some things that let go of you through this journey of transformation. Like they just drop. There's no effort, but willingness to let go of it. And as you let go of it, or they drop, as the case may be, you'll open up to make space for that emerging selfhood that Leon spoke about. And what that brings with it, I don't know. You don't know at this point. But if you're willing and courageous to take that journey, you will know eventually. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shiba, you still, your hand, you raised it and then you got it down. I'm assuming that either your question got answered or...
No, so one, of course, I just wanted to make a quick comment, and I didn't realize that all these 4 signals that we went through, I'm coaching a client now and he's exactly there. And I just feel so nice. I didn't know that this was it, but instinctively I was, guiding and coaching, so to say, him. But I felt so nice having, understood the process this way and saying it's transformational. So that's all I wanted to add. And I also lowered my hand because I want to hear Leon speak a bit more. That's where. And I must add, Leon, that was so nice when you said, what's a powerful question? Coaches are supposed to ask powerful questions. You just ask the right questions. So I think that was really so simple and so brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiba.
You're very welcome.
So let's go to Gauri.
Hi, Amrita. Hi, Leon. Thanks. This was a lovely discussion. And I think I do feel somewhat ready to go on this journey at this point. And I'd spoken to Amrita before this WebEx as well. Sorry, I can't put my camera on right now. But I was curious about, the role or how this model has sort of evolved or been tested in these COVID times. Like what have you found in COVID times? Because it seems like COVID has just, Amrita, like what you just talked about, the letting go and the letting of things you're being let go of certain things. I just see that happening all around. And some of it is positive, some of it I'm not so sure. So I'd be just curious to know, like, have you had some new thoughts because of what we've gone through in the last 2 years?
A lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
A lot of thoughts. I don't look anymore upon crises as negatives at all. Mm-hmm. I only see them as opportunity. And this one has been a whopper of an opportunity. The work, I think, has been beneficial for me in helping me see. I don't sit there and say everything is good necessarily. It's just, I know that coming out of this, people are going to be questioning. And I love those conversations. I love sitting with people, whether they're on a transformational journey or not is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. I love sitting with people in spaces when they're questioning everything, their choices, the values, the way things are run, the systems that we have that govern us and that control us or that support us. I love those conversations. Right. And I've noticed that COVID has become a gateway to those conversations. Sometimes there are conversations around immense loss and suffering and unexpected collapse of things that we valued and things I've held on to. And I've just been grateful for this work because it has allowed me to not get swept up in anything of COVID, in any of the fear. Because the fear is what's driving so much of what's happening. And yet what we need more than anything is the capacity to be with people who are not in the fear, who can hold a space for your fear perhaps, or their fear to be expressed, to be heard, but not to be reacted to, where it becomes, as we see, adversarial, critical. So to be able to just hold space for so much of this is the gift of the work that I have experienced on one level. And the second level, as I mentioned, is not getting caught up in the fear. I have no fear of COVID, none. None. Not for my family, not for anyone. It's simply about what am I grounding in, I guess, in a sense. What am I grounding in that is fearless? For me, that's love, like the consciousness of love. And so what does it look like to sit in love and to be a loving presence for those who may not yet be able to be fearless? So all of this is just a byproduct of the work. I don't call it coaching. It's just the capacity to be with people who are experiencing tumult, loss, sorrow, grief, in so many different ways, and to be a powerful space in which they can share and question and choose differently, maybe.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. That's really helpful. And actually, thanks to COVID, we're all together. I mean, I don't know if we would have been together and done all this work in the last 1 year. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri. Rohini, you asked a question in the chat box in terms of the program, and I will send the details to you, and to everybody else. But the program basically starts in January, and it's a 12-week program that's held every one day. But I'll send you all those details. I'll take Shiba's cue and say, let's hear more of Leon, and these transactional details I'll send across, no problem. Yeah.
Can I ask another question? Do we have time?
Go for it.
Jumping in. So there was just so many interesting things that came out, and Leon, I'm sort of curious to know whether you sometimes feel that if a client is coming to you or to any coaches, looking to really go where the client wants to go, is whether their desire for an outcome is changed depending on who's paying for their coaching. So what I mean is that if I'm an employee and my employer has decided, oh, this is a great opportunity for you to get coached and to be a better leader or whatever, do I come into it thinking, oh, I better make sure that I get the most value out of this for my employer, rather than talk about things about, because at the end of that transformation, I might decide I don't want to be with this company anymore, that really my future is somewhere else. And, how pissed off, sorry to use that word, would my employer be? And equally, would the employer be slightly concerned that if you go into this transformational, realm of coaching, that we might lose our best people? Because, I've had a conversation with someone about that. So I'm just curious to know what your experience is.
Yeah, you see all the fear in the system.
Yes.
All the fear in the system, right? So fear in the system does what? It tries to control it, manage it, limit the possibilities. And so the reality is that transactional coaching dominates organizational life. And you have pointed out some of the very real reasons why it does. And one of those is, good grief, if we really coach this person to question what the heck they're doing here, they're going to look clearly at themselves and see that this is no longer for them, and they'll go somewhere else. But instead of trusting that reshuffling of the world, so to speak, people get fearful of that and, try to hold on or limit. So that's a real issue. And I do notice from my experience too, that people do go into coaching sessions trying to meet the needs of the sponsor. Let's say I'm the client and my sponsor says that I need to improve these 3 things. And sure enough, that's what I got to be focused on. And probably they're going to measure it somehow at the end. So I got to be really concerned about this. And my coach seems really quite concerned about it too, that I reach these markers. Maybe my coach's reputation is also contingent upon me meeting the markers of improvement that they have all set out for me. And you can see how that just disrupts. Yeah, it disrupts everything. So this is why so much is transactional or developmental. It's all often very safe and secure. We've taken this wonderful indicator and you've checked the boxes and you've done this, and you now know that you're this kind of an MBTI or whatever outcome it spits out. It's all very safe, right? And we can learn and grow within this kind of limitation. I don't really know if you have another question to that, but yeah, I do see these dynamics playing out. Yes.
I suppose
Not
my
always.
question, you kind of answered it, but I just wondered whether the people who come to you with a genuine desire to transform come off their own bat, so they're investing in their own coaching. They're not coming because
99% of the time.
That makes sense.
That's right, because they can't have I think, in a sense, feel safe having these conversations in an organizational context. Now, having said that, there are some organizations which are moving ahead in this world. I don't want to categorize all organizations in this way. There are evolutionary organizations, advancing organizations, which are beginning to really open to the potentials of their human capital, so to speak. And they recognize that when people are really connecting with their true authentic self and power, that they can bring that creativity and all of that to the organization. For example, I run the Center for Transformational Coaching. It is an organization. We have staff, we have trainers, we have all of this. I wouldn't dream of limiting them in a coaching session. In fact, if they had a coaching session and they decided there was a better organization on the other side of town to be in, I'd be like, go now, like enjoy the heck out of that experience, right? Like that. So there are organizations that are coming to this understanding that, you know, this work creates a better organization. It creates a soulful place to work. It brings out people's passion and purpose and interest and all those things we talk about that can happen. But these organizations are still fewer than more.
I'm just going to add another perspective to it, Leon, because I just have this great honor and privilege to coach, a C-suite guy from such an evolutionary organization, or an organization that has grown in this manner. And just today, in fact, I had the midterm review of the coaching journey of 12 sessions, and we had a midterm review. And I know for this, and I think that there's one thing that I did right, is to say right up front when I set the whole expectations of the whole coaching journey, to say that there are no expectations, and to share the fact that you may lay out whatever you want this person to achieve, but what he brings to the coaching session is completely up to him. And there is a chance that the person may exit and leave the organization. And I love the term that Leon used of shuffling of the world in some place, because the person who comes back into that space will probably be more right for the organization. So on a long-term basis, it's better. But it's important, I think, as a coach also to normalize this for all the stakeholders in an organization. And if you do that, then coaching, and this, I've been through 7 sessions with this person before I've had now this midterm review. And I can say out of the 7, 5 of them have been deep coaching sessions, guaranteed. And so when we came into this midterm review session, I asked, what are some of the things that you've observed, about this person? Before he could speak, I asked his stakeholders. I said, well, he's like, he's more free. He operates from a space of where, he's not scared anymore. And he just says and speaks his mind in meetings. And he's, the way he engages with his team, he's, a little bit more considerate, not just a taskmaster. He never brought any of these situations to coaching with me. But the impact of that, because he's worked on his own journey, reflects in this outer manifestation. So it's really the beauty of this work and staying true to it and allowing his own transformation then to enable the organization or his team's transformation when he's willing to do that work. And if he has a coach who's willing to walk some other time, but it just came up now. So I thought I should just share it with all of you. So it's possible.
Can I add something here?
Of course.
Yeah. So I did this this deep transformation work last year, did the mastery as well. And I think, anything that you can bring to coaching or any tools you learn, it's really your bonus. So what really happens is that, you'll be a different person. Think that you don't know what you don't know. And you go into that realm about yourself, is that there's so much. I didn't know about myself, and every day I'm learning new things about myself. But it was my 50th last year, and I gifted myself. So I said, Leon, this is the best thing I could have ever given to myself. But it's amazing, this work, really, truly. Thanks to Leon.
Super. So thank you all. I've seen that there's some people who are dropping off, and that's
Yeah, might be a good time to wrap.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you everyone for being here with us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And I'll
Love
share
these
all the
conversations.
details and look forward to seeing you whenever you're ready to do this work yourself.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Great to see you. Bye-bye all.
Bye. See you.
Bye.